Hi traders, welcome back to the channel. So these markets are a rockin'. I mean, I'm doing this pre-market and the S&P futures are down 62. I mean, that's actually kind of normal these days. I mean, I remember on a great day I would have net like 12 points, winners, and now our ranges are well above 50, sometimes even 100 throughout the day. So wild stuff. I've always been a big believer in the greater the boat rocks, the greater your haul of fish, because the fish are really coming to the boat, but of course the sharks are also looking to feed on the fish. So one of the questions I get is, what exactly does a risk manager do, or at least how do they make traders successful? And sometimes I get things like, well, you manage the prop world or the hedge fund traders and stuff, like they're big shots and stuff, and they have like tons of capital. Really, I try to apply the same principles to the individual developing retail trader. And actually, I think the retail trader has an advantage. Let's take a deeper dive, and I'll show you some good takeaways of what I bring to sort of the bigger picture, but how you could take advantage of it as a retail trader, and quite honestly, even do better than them. All right, so let's take a little closer look on what exactly can maybe a risk manager do to help you along with your development as a retail trader. I've always said that retail traders actually have an advantage. They don't have to move big blocks and things like that in like blind pools or all that kind of stuff. We can just go and push the button, and especially on like centralized markets, we get first pick. I mean, we're in line. If a guy has 10,000 contracts they're trading, and I push the button first with one contract, I'm going to get my fill first. So let's take a look and see, what are some of the trainings that I apply in the corporate sector and in the, sort of managed account space that really retail traders can take advantage of. I want to demystify this thing like, well, only, sort of big houses can sort of make money doing that. Let's go to the first thing I want to address, and that is execution. All right, so on the institutional side, as much as independent traders are independent, and let's face it, the most successful ones does have a lot of flexibility, but there's a lot of guys behind them. There's like they're sort of team leader, risk manager, and then of course the top people that are always kind of monitoring and stuff. Because a lot of times you'll have one or two traders that pretty much drive most of the revenue for a firm, so they're kind of watching them with kid gloves. And quite honestly, that would make me kind of very nervous. So as a retail trader, we want you to be your own boss, but you have to sort of also be your own boss as well. I know it's difficult, but understand that you have a lot of flexibility. You can shift and navigate much better, quicker, and easier than on the commercial side. All right, so one of the things I do when I first assess a managed account is I look for their biggest risk. What are their exposures? All right, what are some of the things that I want to make sure? Is there systems in place and all these kind of things to make sure they're not over leveraged and things? But retail traders don't have to worry about that. But what I have to do is focus on your threats. What are some of the things that are going to force you to have, or at least impact, the potential of risk of ruin? That's really my main goal. And to do that for an individual trader is much easier. Obviously, there's a lot of things that come into play, family issues, things like that. But really assessing those threats, and we can do that right with a typical SWOT assessment, labeling your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Focus on those strengths and as well look at those threats and say, okay, what are the threats that are going to prevent me from making this, a long career or, impact my longevity and risk of ruin? Let's nail those first. Much easier to do on the retail side. All right, so one of the roles I play on the managed side also is the overall financial risk management, the funding, the source of the funding, how big of a pain in the ass are the investors that fund the accounts. Please be surprised. A lot of times they want to see daily reports and stuff from the traders and on the prop side. It's kind of a cumbersome pain in the neck. I think it's much easier on the retail side. Obviously, prop funding has its own little quirks and challenges, so to speak, in a way. But I think there's much more flexibility and the ability for, say, a risk person to kind of help not only with getting the funding, but also preserving it and building that capital slowly and without sort of raising eyebrows from the corporate brass. I think it's much easier, and we're in a much different environment now where we can take advantage of that as retailers. So that's a pretty cool thing. I find it very frustrating on that side. I'm always having meetings with like sort of the financial people, the purse strings. But on the trader side, there's a lot more flexibility in different firms, things like that. Finding a good fit, which firm will make good for you, and also if they want to go their own way, is kind of self-funding and generate sort of outside capital outside of the prop firm arena. Next, I play a big role in this sort of concept called change management, and you can Google that term. It really gets involved in processes, policies, procedures, and how firms and managed accounts will kind of shift their focus, and it's a very cumbersome process. On the retail side, I mean, the ability to adapt to new markets, a lot of it's just training and kind of making a good fit. One of the things I always struggle with is having a trader sort of round peg square hole where maybe they're just really good at futures, but the firm just doesn't really embrace the culture. I mean, the culture from a retailer like yourself is just you. I mean, that's what I want to do. That's what I feel comfortable with. Or my job doesn't allow me to trade, that, so I do it in the mornings or something. Great. There you go. There's your change management. All right. Find it much easier for the retailer to adapt. It does take training and things like that, but you can allow that flexibility, the ability to shift gears and to sort of make it a perfect fit is much easier, and we sort of embrace that on the retail side, where sometimes on the managed side it's just one cumbersome 50-page plan that really just sits on a desk and collects dust. All right, sometimes I'm brought on just to do auditing or testing, one for regulatory and compliance reasons, but also just to see if the firm is optimizing their trader performance and things like that. We bring that to the retail side. I use the exact same criteria and documents for retail traders to do their back testing and optimizations and reports and things like that. It's kind of easier. So there's no change in that. The retailers can bring that type of risk management principles directly to their desk. All right, so this next area, I want to give a little sort of checkbox to the sort of managed side, where their appreciation for risk of ruin is, I think, much more valid. I think on the retail side, especially in these volatile markets, I see a lot of people saying, oh, these markets suck, all blaming everything but themselves. And a lot of times I agree. Some of these markets, I mean, one day, that 10-point move, I mean, a 10% move in the equities, I mean, if you're short, it's just part of the game, and we just have to accept it, move on. Maybe these are different times. There's a ways to, adjust those strategies. But really, when it comes down to is, are you putting yourself in a position where risk of ruin is not a factor? And I think on the managed side, I got to give them props. They are much more attuned to risk of ruin, not just risk of ruin from the trader side, but risk of ruin on the firm side. Still, in these down markets, you still see firms blow up, and I really question their sort of risk management practices. They should have called me. But on the retail side, what we can do is clearly have a business continuity plan. I know it's just a one person shop, so to speak, but have that plan, address those threats that will say, okay, risk of ruin. What are some examples? One, am I always looking at my net portfolio delta? It's not just about trade compliance. And in these markets, I will say, I want to start bringing the conversation more to portfolio compliance. You could have 5 trades that it's open positions that are perfectly executed. But if they're all long USD and something happens, guess what? Your risk of ruin gets impeded, or maybe you'll blow a challenge, or maybe even 2. And I've seen that happen. So the art of risk of ruin, but also bringing business continuity into the picture, I think we need to have more conversations about it, and I think this is the perfect forum for. And I'd happy to discuss it. It's kind of dry and boring, and nobody cares when it's a bull market. But like I said, it's best to fix a leaky roof on a sunny day. So another area of corporate risk management where I play a role in, particularly on the managed side, and a lot of times I deal with family offices, is their overall strategic vision, their overall strategic plan. And a lot of these companies have a lot more than just trading operations. They have, businesses and big operations, and sometimes multinational. So there's really a strategic planning element to it. Well, what do I bring to the table on the retail side? How can we take advantage of that? It's really about your trading plan. And one of the things I want to make a distinction, and particularly in the risk management element, and I want this to be a pretty good takeaway for you to think about, is your strategy is very different than your trading plan. Your trading plan is sort of the umbrella, the business plan of your business. Your strategies can change, but your principles in your trading plan generally shouldn't. Let me give you an example. Say you have a strategy that works, all right, and you try to have one-to-one risk reward, or sometimes a setup may be perfect, but it's really like a 1-to-2 risk to reward, or the risk is too big for where the target would be. Now, you can adjust things, and if your strategy allows you to do that, that's fine. But one of the things I'm seeing here, and a lot of some of the traders are sort of complaining about risk of ruin, or saying they're having, the strategy doesn't work anymore, and I'm hearing it all right, is, well, even though the core components of the strategy may be valid, the trading plan components may not be. So, for example, say okay, this is a valid setup and valid strategy, but it's a 30-point target with a 60-point stop on, say, the S&P futures. Well, if you have in your trading plan, everything else is valid, but my maximum risk is 50 points. Now, the strategy is fine, the trade setup is valid, but it doesn't meet your plan criteria. And I think what we're seeing now is a lot of the traders who are struggling, they're doing fine with execution, and maybe they're not. That's another reason. But in these markets, you really need to be like perfect on compliance. But it doesn't meet your trading plan risk components. All right. So what you'll have is sort of a valid setup, but you're not going to take the trade. And when people say, well, no, hit this, my moving average, pull back, cross that, blah, blah, doesn't matter because your trading plan has certain filters and requirements to keep you solvent and keep your risk of ruin safe. All right. So what we want to do is make sure you have this sort of umbrella trading plan. And we can help you out with that too as well. We do that all the time. Usually when we have our members, some of our programs, that's one of the first things we do is we want to help them with their trading plan. The other thing cool about that is if the markets shift, say maybe the markets go slow, which I don't know, I don't see that happening anytime soon. But say they do, we can get into more of like a scalping strategies or reversion to the means and things like that. All right, that's fine. Your trading plan, the principles still stay the same. So very rarely, once a year, I look at my trading plan to try and tweak things, but it's really the strategy separating from the trading plan. I know I spent a few minutes on that, and I probably belabored it to the point of nauseum, but you know what? It's really, really important and a really good takeaway that I want to bring to the table here. So what are the areas of sort of risk of ruin or your concerns about blowing up that is most concerning you? Is the strategy, your ability to execute, the timeframes, or is it just this sort of fear of just random tweets that just sort of screw everything up? I had a client last week who had this best trading day ever, and I said, please tell me you had six figures, and he's like, six figures, like it was like 319,000 or something, and I'm like, wow. But it's the same day I had other people saying, I blew up, small accounts, or a challenge that went awry. So it's just really weird. I know these markets are crazy. I personally like volatility, but not this much. I think we're going a little too far away from the sweet spot. Hopefully that will, sort of calm down. But if we're dealt these cards and the fish are near the boat, we want to take advantage of it. So think about these principles of risk management that from the corporate side that we could bring to the retail side. I think they're very valuable. And sometimes it means taking a step back and saying, all right, I'm not going to look at every single facet of one trade. I'm going to take a step and say, how's my business going? And am I moving in the direction that I need to do it? I've been blessed to be a part of this movement in risk management and trading since 2007, and it's been great, and personally, and just it fulfills me from a career and corporate side as well. But I know it's not easy, and I know this is a very unique space, whether it's YouTube community or other types of trading firms. We kind of specialize in this, and we feel this is a key sweet spot to longevity. Doesn't mean you're going to have a losing week, doesn't mean you're going to have a losing month, but you're going to have a long career without that area of risk of ruin, which we see really kills a lot of traders. So think about that. Hopefully we could help you in that regard. But if that's not your direction you want to go in, or maybe this isn't the time, think about getting an accountability partner or accountability group. Goes a really, really long way, and you don't necessarily have to go the coaching side. I hope this brought some insight to you. Keep it safe. These markets are very, very volatile, very crazy, a lot of opportunities, but also an increased amount of risk. And that's what we see, that differential where they don't factor in the risk, they don't focus on the risk, and ends up, going into the graveyard of disappointment. And we don't want to see any more of those victims. All right. Have a great day. Have a great week. Safe trading week. And we'll see you next time.